Greetings, WHAP warriors. I'm getting you started on the primary source analysis for Chapter 9. So if you could toggle open the Google Classroom, open that up. You should have something coming up that says Experiencing the Early Industrial Revolution. I will get you started on that. There's one that I always like to read, and then I will allow you to read the rest on your own. Make sure you're reading these with a fine eye. When you're done, and after you're done reading, title them, date them, and then IP them for intended audience, purpose, point of view. Summarize it in a sentence or two, the document, what it is, who it's about, and then extrapolate at least one quote from it into your journal. So kicking off, it says, the immense economic and social changes of the Industrial Revolution left almost no one untouched in the societies that experienced it most fully, especially in its early phases, 1780 to 1875. That immense transformation generated a traumatic upheaval in ways of living for many people. For others, it brought new opportunities, wealth, and comfort. In seeking to understand how individuals experience this unprecedented revolutionary process, historians have at their disposal a wealth of evidence, both documentary and visual. Each of the sources that follow provides just a glimpse of what living through those early decades of the Industrial Revolution may have meant to those who experienced it, mostly in England, where it all began. Remember, it all began in England. The experience of an English factory worker, and this is where I wanted to start and then allow you to continue on your own. The early Industrial Revolution represented not only a technological breakthrough of epic proportions, but also a transformation in the organization of work, expressed most fully in the factory. Unlike the artisan's workshop, which it largely replaced, the factory concentrated human labor in a single place and separated workers from the final product by assigning them the single space, and separated workers from the final product by assigning them highly specialized and repetitive tasks. In the name of efficiency and productivity, owners and managers imposed strict discipline in the factories and regulated workers' lives according to clock time. Finally, workers were wage earners, dependent for their economic survival on the very modest income and highly uncertain unemployment, both of which were subject to the vagaries of the market. One such worker was Elizabeth Bentley, who had worked in a factory since the age of 6. In 1831, when she was 23 years old, Bentley testified before British Parliament Committee investigating conditions in textile mills. A subsequent inquiry elicited testimony from William Harder, a mill owner himself. As a result of these investigations, legislation in 1833 limited the hours of unemployment for women and children. Questions to consider. Child labor was nothing new, for children had long worked in the fields and workshops in pre-industrial Europe. What was different about the conditions under which these children worked in earlier industrial factories? Why do you think the investigator queried Elizabeth Bentley specifically about the treatment of girls? And how does William Harder's testimony explain the willingness of factory owners to impose these conditions on their workers? How might he respond to Elizabeth Bentley's testimony? So here's Elizabeth Bentley's testimony, 1831, and then I'll let you continue on your own to hit these documents. And this is the legislator questioning her and her answering. What age are you? 23. Where do you live? At Leeds. What time did you begin work at the factory? When I was 6 years old. And what kind of mill is it? A flax mill. What was your business in the mill? I was a little doffer. I cleaned the machines. What were your hours of labor in the mill? Pay attention here, folks. From 5 in the morning till 9 at night, when they were thronged, busy. For how long a time together have you worked that extensive length of time? For about a half a year. What were your usual hours when you were not so thronged? From 6 in the morning till 7 at night. What time were you allowed for your meals? 40 minutes at noon. Had you any time for your breakfast or drinking? No, we got it as we could. Explain what it is that you do. When the frames are full, they have to stop the frames and then take the flyers off and take the full bobbins off and carry them to the roller, then put the empty ones on and set the empty frame going again. Does that keep you constantly on your feet? Yes, there are so many frames and they run so quick. Suppose you flagged a little or were too late. What would they do? They would strap us, beat you with a leather strap. Are they in the habit of strapping those who are last at doffing? Yes. Constantly? Yes. Girls as well as boys? Yes. Have you ever been strapped? Yes. Severely? Yes. Were the girls struck so as to leave marks upon their skin? Yes, they have had black marks many times, and their parents dare not come to him about it. They are afraid of losing their work. Could you eat your food well in the factory? No, indeed, I had not much to eat, and the little I had I could not eat it. My appetite was so poor at being covered with dust, and it had no use to take it home. I could not eat it, and the overlooker took it and gave it to the pigs. How far have you to go for dinner? We could not go home for dinner. Where did you dine? At the mill. Did you live far from the mill? Yes, 2 miles. I mean, if you're walking, that's quite a ways, right? Suppose you had not been in time in the morning at these mills. What would have been the consequence? We should have been quartered. If we were a quarter of an hour too late, they would take off a half an hour. We only got a penny an hour, and they would take a half a penny more. Were you also beaten for being late? Too late? No, I was never beaten myself. I have seen the boys beaten for being too late. So there's being strapped, folks, like being hit with a strap, and then there's like beaten, like punched up, beat up, kicked, beat up. Were you generally there in time? Yes, my mother had been up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, the colliers used to go to work about 3 or 4 o'clock. And when she heard them stirring, she has to get up out of her warm bed and got out and asked them time. And I have sometimes been at Hunslet car at 2 o'clock in the morning when it was streaming down with rain, and I have had to stay home until the mill was opened. So you can see a very harsh experience. Make sure to read William Harder, the mill owner's testimony. And then one that is very, 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 you need to read with a fine-tooth comb because this is consequential, is Friedrich Engels, The Conditions of the Working Class in England, 1844. Please read through that with a fine-tooth comb. I think you're going to find it to be quite eye-opening as to the living conditions in Manchester, England, which was kind of like poster boy 101 for the Industrial Revolution and the after effects. And then a look at another view of factory life. You're going to look at some of the images. Don't worry about source 17.4. Those are just images for you to look at. And then I do want you to look at, and I took a picture of railroads in the middle class. It's simply an image, but what's more important is reading the description of what the railroad meant to the middle class. So I do want you to IP that one. So please take a look at these primary source documents. They're going to be fair game for future questions and SAQs, and you'll be able to use towards your LEQ on Friday. Now, a couple things before we depart. Number one, today is an extra day you're going to be given to, if you haven't registered for the AP exam. I'm going to send out that information today to your parents and to your email. You have until 5 o'clock tonight to register, so I highly recommend you do so. I want everybody taking it that can. Beyond that, I will zoom in tomorrow about 10 or 15 minutes into class. We'll get you started to answer any questions you have about the World Diplomacy game and get you playing. I miss you all. I really do. You're in great hands. Mr. Donovan is a FHC Ranger All-Star and hometown hero and legend, and you're in great hands, and I'm so glad that he's there to have some fun with you. So, Mr. Donovan, do your thing. I look forward to seeing you all soon, and take care for now. Huzzah.